Greetings, this is Dslyecxi, and in today's Q&A, I'll be talking about myself. The theme of this one is personal questions. I picked a bunch of them, and some of them have long answers and some are short. We'll try to shoot for about 20 minutes worth of chat here. The background video is Dslyecxi from some of the practice sessions that we've been doing lately in ShackTac, and I've dropped the audio from it to avoid interfering. It should make for a nice background if you're into that. If not, just minimize it and listen along. There were more than a few people that were asking questions about my military service, so that's as good a subject as any to start off with. Specifically, they asked what I did, what I thought of it, and whether I miss it. So, to tell the story briefly, I joined the Marines in 2001 after high school because I wasn't enthused with the notion of going to college. I was tired of the school environment and I wanted to do something else. I chose the Marines because they seemed like the only reasonable decision. If I was going to join, I might as well go all the way. It was good logic at the time, or so young me thought. When I first talked to the recruiter, like many other prospective Marines, I honestly thought the options were all combat arms. I mentioned I was interested in going in as some kind of anti-tank person, because that seemed really cool. But fortunately, my recruiter had other plans, and I ended up going in as a comms guy with a guaranteed MOS that was essentially a computer dude. As most Marine stories go, things became interesting in boot camp. But for me, and those with me at the time, it was particularly interesting. I was in boot camp on September 11th, and for those of you that don't know, MCRD San Diego literally, and I mean literally, borders the San Diego airport. Hearing planes coming and going, it was a non-stop occurrence during boot camp, and a continual knife in the gut, considering how badly everyone wants to graduate and take one of those flights home. When they shut down the airport in the wake of the attacks, that was a time that will stay with me for many years. The airport was shut down, there were Marines on guard, real ones, not us recruits, and our drill instructors were seething and livid at being stuck as trainers at a time when they knew war was brewing. War was imminent. They wanted vengeance, and they couldn't have it. They were stuck training. And you felt that caged ferocity there. The entire atmosphere of boot camp, of our training, flipped completely that day. Things turned serious. More so than before, much more so. When we first heard that the towers had gone down, we were in a relative vacuum of information. We were in boot camp. And what was told to us was that there could have been 50,000 killed from it. Now, knowing my history and putting that potential death toll in context with Pearl Harbor, it was instantly obvious that we were going to war. And suddenly, I was there. I was in the mix. I joined in peacetime. And by the time I was out of boot, it was war. And suddenly, everyone was a patriot. Every scared and uncertain civilian. There were the flags blossoming here, there, and everywhere. It was very strange to see. I came out into a world so alien to the one I had left. From boot, I went to Marine Combat Training, MCT. It hadn't yet changed to a more serious course. This was January of 2002. And if I'm remembering right, my class was the one before it changed to a longer duration. I want to say ours was 17 days or thereabouts, and it was about to go up to like 30 or something like that. And we had a total pittance of ammo to train with. I fired a whopping 25 rounds out of a saw, which was a ton of fun, but it goes pretty quick. 6 practice 40mm M203 grenades, which again was awesome. Various practice hand grenades and one live one, which was blast. Ha ha ha. When we went and did our AT4 training, the simulator was busted. The ISMIT simulator they had for it was busted. So he just went through the motions. He sat there and flipped the little levers and stuff and pressed the button and heard the spring fire. It was a joke. There were fun parts. The few patrols we did, the night assault, ambushes, reactive contact, stuff like that, all with blanks. And I have fond memories of them. And there's certainly some stories to be told there, but overall it wasn't anything that significant. It certainly wasn't anything like what the infantry received in their training. But I guess the flip side of that is that when you're done with your training, you don't have to be infantry. So there's always an upside, right? From MCT, I went to 29 Palms and did my MOS training. I was there for something like 8 months all told, doing my primary MOS training, then taking up a secondary one, and then being stuck there on legal hold when one of my dipshit roommates stole the laptop of the other roommate and got caught doing so. So I got to stick around after my class graduated and left for their duty station. The fun part was, We found out that we wouldn't be leaving literally the day before we were supposed to go, with everything already packed and, just one wake up away from leaving 29 fucking Palms. I think it was 2 or 3 months before the trial, and before we finally got to head to our final duty stations. For me, that was Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. Oh yeah, and the guy that stole the laptop was convicted and lost his security clearance and his MOS because of it. It was dumb. So anyway, I ended up in Camp Lejeune. I work at the base comm center. I'm doing this shift work there, and I'm working with a mix of civilians and Marines. It was odd. It wasn't what I was expecting. The highlight of being in Lejeune was getting to do a MOUT course, which I had a ton of fun at, and which was really an eye-opening experience all in all. But there's not much else to say about Lejeune. It wasn't exciting. It didn't feel important. When the invasion of Iraq was happening in 2003, we were sitting in a comm center, fucking around, watching CNN cover a war. Now, it was a job that needed to be filled, but there's nothing at all rewarding or exciting about it. You're just filling a seat, and it felt like it. And it particularly felt like it as you're watching people fighting and dying on the other side of the planet from you that wear the same uniform as you. So that was Lejeune. In the middle of 2004, with about a year left on my enlistment, I received orders to Okinawa, Japan. When I got there, I made the lovely discovery that when our MOS field's codes had changed, it was originally, when I went in, I was a 4066. And then they changed over to the 06 field, which is comm and data. And I was at 0651, 0653, if I'm remembering correctly, or 0656. I don't know. So I was 2 out of the 3 of those. Anyway, when the codes changed, whoever our admin guy that did this listed me as something that I actually wasn't. I hadn't been trained as this. I was listed as a tactical data network specialist. I had no fucking clue what that meant. I'd never seen a TDN box before, and I arrived in Okinawa to fill that role, and I literally had no experience with it. I was fortunate to find a different niche there when I was introduced to the ISMIT, or Indoor Simulated Marksmanship Trainer, and I soon became the dude in charge of that. I spent the remainder of my time on Okinawa running the ISMIT and teaching myself the ins and outs of all the weapons we had there, acting as a rifle and a pistol coach, and just generally having far more fun than I think anyone intended for me to have, and it was great. It really was. I developed ambidextrous shooting skills in that role. I became familiar with the workings and employment of all the major Marine infantry arms, trained people how to shoot, and it was fun. Legitimately an enjoyable job. And the thing of it is, it was sad leaving that role. Out of the 4 years I spent in the Marines, those last 8 months or so as the ISMIT dude were almost exactly what I wanted to do. I just never known it was an option. I landed there by pure chance. Ultimately, though, I had to leave. I didn't enjoy my unit in Lejeune. I didn't like the leadership. I thought the civilians were great, but our actual NCOs and above, it just wasn't what I was looking for. It wasn't what I'd been led to believe it would be like. In Okinawa, I landed with a unit that was quite a bit different, and I say that in a positive way. And I was exposed to leaders at both the NCO and higher levels who were often very competent, motivating, and the kind of people you'd follow. To put it in a cheesy way, they seemed like real Marines. Now, that's not to say that they were all like that. There were certainly some bad apples. But there were more there than I'd ever seen in Lejeune. The problem for me was that I was tired of being restricted in role, and I wanted to seek out things that were more up my alley and not in a military context. I was totally unwilling to sign away another 4 years of my life in the hopes that I'd end up somewhere I wanted to be, doing what I wanted to do. So I didn't. I left. As it turned out, I ended up in a civilian capacity working for a company that did exactly the sort of thing I'd been doing in the ISMIT. It was a perfect fit. It was actually better than that, as I ended up with a company that was doing this sort of stuff with VBS, something that I'd always thought the ISMIT would have benefited from. Now, do I miss the Marines? I can't say that I do. There are aspects of it that I really treasured. There's a lot that rubbed off on me in a very positive way. But when I think back to my time in the Marines, there are very few moments that shine bright in my memories. Am I glad I did it? Yes. It unquestionably helped me mature and become a better person. What's interesting is that maybe once or twice a year, I end up having a re-enlistment dream, which is apparently not an uncommon thing for prior service people to have. But every time I wake up from one, it's a huge relief to realize it was all a dream, that I wasn't committed to another 4 years of that experience. I think that says a lot as to whether I miss it or not. So that's a bunch of answers to a number of different military-related questions. As with anything, there's a lot more that could be said, but for now, let's move on to something else. This next one is a combination of questions. Have there ever been times when my commitment to ShackTac became a burden? And is there any particular reason why I don't seem to take higher level infantry leadership roles that often? These are linked, you'll see why in a second. To answer the first, yes, running ShackTac, being in the position I'm in, it is a burden. It's not that there are times when it's a burden, it's always a burden. It's a heavy weight to carry. It's a lot of responsibility, and it gets heavier as the years go by. It's impossible not to envy the members who are able to just come and go as they please, play when it suits them, avoid any administrative responsibility or drama, and so on and so forth. I can't imagine what that's like, and it's the bitter irony that for all the work I've done to try to make ShackTac what it is and shape it out of all the people that get to enjoy it, my enjoyment's the most tainted by the long shadows cast by dramas, stressors dealing with the community, our future, and all the other myriad ways in which you can find yourself struck low by the unpleasant parts of community management. I would love to be a member of ShackTac without having to worry about and deal with all the things that I have to worry about and deal with on a daily basis. The average ShackTac member really doesn't have any idea of how good they have it. They truly don't. So that leads into the other question. Why don't I take infantry leadership, particularly the higher level roles, more often? When it boils down, it's because of those stressors. Our members get to play in the sessions. They don't have to worry about anything other than picking a role, living up to our standards, and having a good time. On the other hand, I have too much to worry about. And it's very hard at times to get my head right for that sort of leadership. There are a lot of times where I just want to be alone and not have to have responsibility beyond my individual skills as they relate to the unit and the mission. For instance, the AH-6 is a perfect example of a role where I can do something, do it well, but not have to be burdened with leadership at the same time. Armored vehicles, gunships, small unit stuff like that, fire team leadership when I'm feeling more upbeat, squad leadership when I'm in a particularly good mood. Platoon, it's rare, but it happens. Company, it's even more rare. And in truth, I lament it. It sucks going into a session and wondering what might happen to throw the balance out of whack. It's demoralizing. 8.5 years to manage a community from OFP to Arma 2, kinda to Arma 3. I mean, that's a challenge. It wears you out. It makes you old. And you feel old. In the end, though, the thing that keeps you going is knowing that it's bigger than you. That whatever you're sacrificing of yourself is worth it, as it's giving a lot of people a lot of great experiences, great memories with great friends. And that's heartening. On a personal level, I just wish I had more of an opportunity to experience that in a purer form, without the administrative concerns. But oh well, such is life. At the very least, I can hope that no one in the group ever takes it for granted, because there are real costs, emotional, personal ones, that are associated with us being where we are as a community these days. We pay the piper, and some of us more than others. Moving on to something a bit more upbeat. There's always got to be a serious topic in these, otherwise it wouldn't be honest, would it? What was the most influential game you played that showed you the potential of what games could offer? The biggest moments for me in gaming, thinking back on it, would be the first time I saw Doom 2, the first time I played the Rainbow Six demo, and the Operation Flashpoint demo. Doom, I consider that my introduction to first-person shooters. I played Wolfenstein 3D as well, but Doom was such a massive leap ahead of it that it stands out in my memory as the one that mattered. I remember a friend introducing me to it, blasting through multiple zombies with a double-barrel shotgun, and I was totally amazed with it. I'd never seen anything like that before. I spent years playing Doom, either single-player or co-op. We had these things called modems. You actually used the phone line to dial from one computer to another and play a two-player game. You fucking young'uns. You don't understand. Anyway, so years of my life went towards Doom, exploring new levels and conversions. It was just awesome. It was just so much fun. I love that game. I'll still play it. I'll put a link, or maybe in better or something. There's a series myself, Beagle, and Killer went and played through Doom 2. It was a ton of fun. But anyway, everything along those lines, the 2.5D shooters, Doom, Duke 3D, Blood, that sort of stuff. And then you move on to the real 3D ones, Quake series, Unreal Tournament, Half-Life. Each of those was a game that I poured inordinate amounts of time into. But it was Rainbow Six that opened my eyes to something new. and I still very clearly remember playing the demo for the first time. I was steeped in experiences from all manner of first-person shoot-'em-ups. I consider myself a very skilled player. I was totally unprepared and totally unaware of what I was getting into. I opened the door, stormed into a room, and watched my view spin crazily as I was shot dead by a bad guy. And I sat back, stunned, truly stunned, at the notion that there wasn't a health decay, there wasn't time to correct what had happened. I was just dead. I had my chance. They shot faster than I did. And that was that. That was probably the single most significant event for me in gaming. That was a formative moment. That was a moment where I had finally seen something that felt like it gave me a bridge between reality and gaming. It was honest. It showed the harshness of reality, how unforgiving it is, how all the training in the world can be ended by a single shot. Rainbow Six introduced me to the concept, and later on, Operation Flashpoint would step in and take that realism out of the confines of shoebox environments and onto the stage of actual combined arms warfare. The Flashpoint demo being tasked to take down a convoy and being given the tools to do it, but left up to my own choices as to how to make that happen, was another landmark gaming moment for me. So much to be said about my gaming history. So many stories. It'd be a fun topic to cover another time. But it'll have to be another time. Next question. How many ShackTac-related emails would I say I received during a week on average? I don't keep that close of a track on it, which is probably good for my sanity, but just flipping back through the past week or so, seems like I probably get somewhere between 40 and 80 emails relating to some kind of ShackTac topic every week. Now, many of these are join requests, but a considerable number aren't. And bear in mind, this is purely email. And for better or worse, a lot of what I have to respond to comes in other forms, such as Skype. I don't even want to know how many Skype messages I get and respond to on any given week. It's a sickening amount of messages. And I always feel like I'm fighting a losing battle trying to keep up with email and Skype. So if you send me something I haven't responded, I'm sorry. There's so much. It's very difficult. I try to do the best I can, but God, it's a lot of email. Next question. Have you ever met one of your members in real life? And if so, who? Also, what was it like? I've met about 35, 40 different ShackTac members over the years at different events. It's been great every time. I've yet to meet someone from ShackTac that didn't come across as a really good person. ShackTac people meet up with each other all the time. It's a very common occurrence. Probably 10, 15 times a year, different events happen in different countries. So yeah, not uncommon. Next question. How often do you and other ShackTac members play games on off days when you don't have sessions scheduled? And when you do you play Arma games or completely different titles? And what are your thoughts on going on a podcast like TotalBiscuit's Cooptional? Alright, when it's not session time, we're playing games pretty much constantly. There's always a group of people playing something, and there's often mini groups playing different things. There's games that we have that we play on a recurring fashion where there's schedules for them. Different subsets of the membership have different interests. And it spans every genre. It's not even worth trying to say it. Name a game is probably something that people play together. The one theme is that it's very rare to see us playing Arma outside of our sessions. The big Wednesday and Saturday session experience for many of us is Arma. And playing anything less than that just isn't the same, so many of us don't play unless for a session. As for going on a podcast, I think I'm a bit too niche for that. And I don't know that my personality really fits that kind of setting. I'm rather reserved. I'm not the kind of personality that's going to thrive on a podcast. I'm probably not nearly as interesting in that context as you think I would be. But I appreciate the vote of confidence. So, last question. Do you ever get frustrated, tired with Arma's mechanics? And if so, what do you do? Yes, of course I do. You can't play Arma for a long period of time and not find something frustrating within it. It can be a very frustrating experience at times. Some of the things we have to deal with in it are intensely frustrating and limiting. But the things that get under my skin the most are the ones that, if they were addressed, They could open up so much potential and accessibility for the series. You're probably going to see this one coming, but for example, the god-awful atrocity that is the action menu. If that were fixed, it would completely change the user experience for the better. I loathe it. I can't stand watching people's experiences get disrupted or destroyed because of that godforsaken monstrosity. The action menu must die. But of course, that's not the only thing. That's just a very notable example of it that everyone should be familiar with. Now, as to what I do, when I'm feeling frustrated with Arma, I tend to try to find some way to address it, either by writing up my thoughts on the subject or doing something else that might someday bear constructive fruit. I vent, but I tend to vent in private. I'm not going to be the person that comes out and just has a rant of passion about how this, that, and the other about Arma sucks. Of course, one exception to that is the action menu, which is the only time in my history I've sat down and made a video that was like, hey, you see this feature? This feature can go to hell. I'd like to send it there. But aside from that, I try to be as constructive as possible. As to how successfully I've accomplished that goal, I guess that remains to be seen. But for as much as I'm not a fan of a lot of things in Arma, I am very grateful that Arma exists and that we have that option. We're able to take advantage of it and have the experiences that we have. Whether that be in Arma 2 or Arma 3, the important part is at the end of the day, it's something that's truly unparalleled anywhere else in gaming. No one else has ever done it. The only other studio that even tried to come close to that died in the attempt. So I'm pretty thankful for it, all things considered. Maybe one day there won't be anything to complain about in Arma. It's going to be a long road to get there. But it'll be an interesting road. I'm willing to walk it. And I know there's a lot of others who are willing to walk that too. Ooh, wow. So that's more than I was planning to talk about. That's not a bad amount of time. I hope it was interesting. What I'd like to do probably in the future, we'll see. Maybe every month and a half, something like that. Try and do a Q&A as long as there's topics to talk about and people are interested in it and find it entertaining. Just doing this one has given me a lot of ideas of some future things to speak on. So if you enjoyed this, please let me know if you didn't like it or there's something you'd like to see changed about it. Of course, give that feedback as well. Thanks for listening. To those of you who sent in questions, thank you very much. If I didn't cover your question, I'm sorry. Keep trying. Maybe we'll get in the future. So, to close out, this is Dslyecxi. And until next time, take care.